Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I'm your host, Chad Portal. Joining me is Marcus Green. Marcus, we've had a hell of a week so far, and it's only Monday.
Yeah, man. Hell of a weekend. Hell of a weekend.
So, in case you were sleeping, this weekend we saw a new New Japan crowned World Cup champion, something or other. Zachary Sabre Jr. won the New Japan Cup. Didn't see the finals, wanted to. Duke and North Carolina are going to face off in what will be Mike Krzyzewski's last game against the Tar Heels, as he will retire at the end of the season. Winner goes to the national title game, and a lot of people are hoping that Duke goes kind of as a nice nod to arguably the greatest college basketball coach of all time. Buff Bagwell has seemingly become the most in-demand legend not signed to AEW or the WWE just because he's not a punk-ass bitch. Props to Buff Bagwell for being a decent human being in an industry that's apparently shallow on them. And I know that we're shallow on them because Control Your Narrative exists. And there are people who are interested in that promotion. So, it is what it is. We also found out that Will Smith is going to be starring in a new remake of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's going to be called The Fresh Cuck of Bel-Air. I'm looking forward to it. Should be interesting. And yeah, know what? We talked about this off here, but Marcus, I got to give props to Chris Rock because that dude took a shot. Like, he just ate it.
Yeah,
And
I mean, look,
smiled after like a gangster. Like, he got hit and he just went, really? And it wasn't even that he was shocked or mad. I think he was just surprised that Will hits like a bitch. Really,
might have been
Will?
a little bit. I think it might have been a little bit of everything. He definitely got thrown off for a minute because he kind of flubbed a little bit on his next line. But I think it's shocking. So shocking that he kind of had to say it. Well, Will Smith just slapped the shit out of me on live TV. Um, but yeah, I mean, kudos to him. It takes a certain amount of restraint because ultimately, physical altercations as they go, in a lot of places, I'm sure you grew up like this too. A slap is more disrespectful than a punch.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a punch is more of an indication of a violent occurrence. Like, you're accepting that this situation has now turned sour, and you
Yeah,
believe that the only way forward is through fisticuffs. A slap is an indication that you are escalating, but not raising the stakes. Like, yeah, you slapped me. That's kind of a dick move, but like, also you slap me. Like, what are you, a 12-year-old girl? So like, yeah, it's completely different. A slap is far more disrespectful because back in the olden times, Marcus, back when people like us couldn't vote, because we're not landowners and you were the wrong shade. When you slap somebody, it started a duel. You slap them, then you bring out the guns, and then you point them at each other, and then you shoot. Sometimes there's 15 paces or whatnot. So, like, the idea of a slap historically has always been a sign of disrespect. You slap somebody to try to get them to shoot you. I mean, granted, in 2022, if you slap somebody, they still might shoot you. So I guess it's, customs and traditions be damned. We're still living in that era, apparently. I don't want to live in that era, Marcus. I don't like the idea of us not being able to vote and having to shit in a hole outside of our house. Like, none of that sounds appealing to me. Although the wigs were pretty dope. The wigs were pretty dope. I would like to see you in one of those wigs, Marcus.
oh my God.
with the white curls and I like the jackets. The jackets are pretty dope too. Only two good things that came out of that era. Jackets
Yeah,
and wigs.
yeah.
Pretty much the entirety of what's it called? Hang on, I can do it. I can figure it out. Hang on. Drag shows. Pretty much the entirety of drag shows came out of the 1770s. Wigs, makeups, and elaborate costumes. That's pretty much, describing the signing the Declaration of Independence and, West LA's drag show scene. Go figure. Marcus, go figure. Speaking of going to figure, We got a pretty stacked show. WrestleMania's this weekend. You wouldn't know about it if you weren't paying attention because why the hell would you? WWE doesn't do a great job promoting anymore. I only know about it because all the other shows I watch are like, yeah, it's WrestleMania weekend. I'm like, why is this dude who covers the Green Bay Packers reminding me it's WrestleMania weekend? Like, Tom Grossi, what are you doing?
Yeah, and it's 2 nights, and I have to be reminded of it. It's two
Yeah.
nights.
Oh, it is 2 nights. It's 2 nights, and I granted, like, I don't know what's worse. Is 2 3-hour shows better than one 7-hour show? Yes, but
But if we talk about this straight call, if we just talk about straight calls on paper, the Hall of Fame looks better.
what are you telling me? You're not excited about Lashley versus Omos? I'm almost excited about that. I'm
I mean,
sorry.
is that who we face?
Yeah. Apparently, that was announced on Raw. Lashley will take on Omos at WrestleMania.
Oh, so that's gonna be however many minutes back and forth for him trying to get his big ass in the hurt lock.
Yeah, it's pretty much just going to be the whole Big Show Lashley feud from 2006. So here's the card for night one. We're going to see how many of these matches we actually need to have. Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title. Ray and Dom versus The Miz and Logan Paul. McIntyre and Happy Corbin. The Usos, versus Nakamura and Rick Boogs for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. The New Day versus Sheamus and Ridge Holland with Butch. Seth freaking Rollins versus TBA, the most booked wrestler in the history of wrestling. And then Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. Marcus, how many of these matches do you think we can cut?
Yeah. I haven't seen TBA in years, so gotta see him.
Right, go to see TBA. Almost as great as Vacant, the greatest world champion of all time. Almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not gonna turn down seeing Belair get the championship, which is where that needs to go. Do not need to see either one of those tag scenarios. Um, so what? That's 2 out of that.
I think so.
2 out of that. Yeah.
And they're both the women's matches.
No, the
You mean
the
I thought you meant left over. You mean removing both the tag team matches, the tag titles and
yeah,
the Logan Paul and the Mysterios.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so far left, then we have both women's titles. Um, all right? So there's actually 3 tag team matches. There's the Logan Paul one, the tag title one with the Usos, and then the New Day one. Which 2 are you cutting, or are you cutting all 3?
This New Day versus who?
Sheamus and Ridge Holland.
I'm gonna lead that one because that one can be cracking. I think that's it. Then you got the whole story about E. I'm hoping Holland doesn't put anybody else out.
Yeah.
Cut it just for their safety.
So here's the thing. I think this show, like, why don't you just make one SmackDown, one Raw? That makes sense to me. I guess I'm the only person who sees it. But here's what I would do. I would condense the Drew McIntyre and Happy Corbin match because I don't know why that's a thing. And I would add them into the New Day and Sheamus and Ridge Holland match. And just make it a 6-man tag if you got to keep them both. And maybe add Seth Rollins to the Sheamus team and then eventually Cody Rhodes because that's who they're rumored to be doing them with in the New Day team. I think that would save a lot of time. But of the matches that we, quote-unquote, could use, need, or that would be useful, I'm keeping Becky and Bianca. I'm keeping Miz and Logan Paul versus the Mysterios. I'm keeping the Usos and Nakamura and Boogs. I'm keeping Charlotte and Rousey. The rest I'm getting rid of. And I like the idea of the New Day and Sheamus and Ridge Holland having issues over Big E, but Ridge Holland is who? And you're going up against future Hall of Famers, and it's just not a marquee enough feud in my opinion for WrestleMania. That's just my thought. But I do like the idea, but save it for WrestleMania Backlash or whatever the fuck we have coming up in late
Yeah,
April, May.
or do us one better. Take Holland's little potentially jacksy self out and put in Butch.
Butch. I'm Butch. I'm Butch Dunn. If he doesn't speak like that as Butch, I don't even know what we're doing, Marcus. Marcus, I don't even know what we're doing. By the by, Marcus and I came up with a cartoon idea. The Ultimate Warrior goes to the insurrection. We need an animator. If you're listening and you can do it, let us know.
Oh my god. Man.
Night 2. Here's the roster. Let's talk about who we're keeping, who we're not. Queen Zelina and Carmella versus Sasha Banks and Naomi versus Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan versus Natalya and Shayna Baszler. We have Knoxville versus Zayn in an anything goes match. Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory. RK Bro versus Street Profits versus Alpha Academy. Edge versus AJ Styles. Lashley versus Omos. And then Brock versus Roman in a winner-take-all WWE Championship and WWE Universal Title unification match. So, I kind of have this mindset of keep all the titles. And then keep all the celebrities. Even though I feel like this is the weaker celebrity title card. Because at least with Logan Paul, you're catering to that 15 to 22 demo. You're not catering to that demo with Johnny Knoxville. You're not catering to that demo with Pat McAfee. So I don't know why they're on the card. So I would keep the women's tag match, even though I think it's going to be dull. And I would keep McAfee in theory just for my own selfish desires because I think McAfee is super entertaining when he's getting his ass beat. Have I sent you that video of him doing the Tennessee Titans or Indianapolis Colts NFL draft video?
No.
So they were in Tennessee for the draft in 2019, 2018, and McAfee had just retired. And he came out and he's like, my name's Pat McAfee. I was a punter with the Indianapolis Colts for X amount of years. And then he says something to the effect like, most of you would not know who I am because we did not punt much when we faced Tennessee. And then Tennessee started booing him. So he's always been a shitheel, and I love it. I love that dumbassery that he brings. I'm cutting the tag team title match because I will never rep Matt Riddle to any degree. I can't do it. I have no interest in Edge versus AJ Styles. It feels like two grandpas about to beat each other up over who has the worst hair in their 40s. And it's not just that their hair is bad, they got bad beards too. I know people think that just because you have a big beard like Edge did or does, I haven't seen Edge wrestle in a couple weeks. I don't know if he still has the beard. But when you look at AJ Styles' beard, it's so bad. And Edge is just unoriginal. It's just, ugh. I'm dropping Lashley and Omos because why is Omos on this card? So ultimately, I'm keeping the women's match, the McAfee match, and the winner takes all match. What are you keeping?
Let's see. Appreciate the women. Hoping it's going to Sasha and Naomi, but I don't know if I care enough to that goal to just sit through the entire match, so I might scrap that. Don't care about Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn, which Zayn has something better to do. Keeping Theory and Austin, Pat and Theory, like you said, for your own selfish entertainment purposes. I would like to keep this tag because they put on a really great showing on Raw. But with the concept of RK Bro, like you said, we're not endorsing Riddle. We really don't want to endorse Orton. But there's a potential for them to lose the straps. And at this point, they can go to either team. I don't care. hoping to go to the Profits though. Because I haven't seen it before, I'm gonna keep Edge and Styles. Sorry, Lash, but you can like go back to Impact for a night. Just match with almost you and MVP, just so we can hear that theme song again. Um, and then Lesnar and Reigns for the eighth time at least, we can say got a new spin on it from a character perspective. But yeah, I'm probably keeping that. So yeah.
I'm hoping that Lesnar does more than just fucking Germans. Please. For the love of God. Do something different. I don't care if it's a T-bone suplex. Just something. Like, you reinvented your character. You're Western Canada cowboy Brock Lesnar. I want a moveset to go with the new attitude. I'm not asking for much, Marcus. I'm really not. But I feel like we're not going to get that. Do you have hopes that this match will be the best of their previous 8 or 7?
Honestly, man, I can't call it. Like I said, the most interesting part of it for me is the character-wise. Now, we have seen Lashley deliver. I mean, not Lashley, Lesnar deliver when he needed to, and obviously these two can have far longer of a match than him and Goldberg. So I think there's a potentiality for it. Of course, I can't compare it mentally because I don't care to go back and watch none of the other stuff because it was just long plotting for me. And like I said, this one at least has the pop with it. You got Heyman in a completely different scenario. So yeah, I think there's a high percentage for it to be, but you never know with these things.
Who takes it?
Man, I'm gonna go with Reigns because I don't think in their meetings he hasn't beaten Lesnar, has he? Not at Mania.
No, didn't he? No, he lost. Seth won the first one, and then Lesnar won the second one.
Yeah, so he hasn't beaten him at Mania, and obviously, oh yeah, the other thing, he has the potential to beat a record held by Hogan. So for that alone,
What, most days held with the belt?
let's see what's the potentiality with Hogan. There's one beating Hulk Hogan's record. I think most Mania main events.
For who, Lesnar or Reigns?
Reigns, I think.
Has he had that many? He main evented 31. Dear God, has he really main evented that many? Hang on. This can't be right. All right. 31 against Brock and Seth. 32 against Reigns and Triple H. 33 against The Undertaker. 34 against Brock. Let's see. 37 against Roman and Edge and Bryan. And now 38. So that's 1, 2, 6? Reigns, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's on 6. Although I would argue that the last few years don't count because they've had 2 nights. So, with that said, I kind of want to see Brock win it because I would like to see something different for the last 1,000 days or whatever. But,
And this is
who knows?
It's the best version of Brock we've ever had. Like this is.
He really is. He's so damn entertaining. So, Marcus, is there anything like besides the main event? What is the match you're most looking forward to?
I can't give it to because I guess the moment people are waiting for is obviously the Seth freaking reveal. But I'm gonna say the match. I think it's a toss up between Lynch and Belair or Edge and Styles. I'm gonna get an edge to Edge and Styles because it's just a match we haven't seen. Most of these matches we've seen 4 to 5 times on the weekly shows.
Yeah, it's not good.
Just, I mean, if anything, it's just gonna be bigger spots. You know.
I think this is gonna be one of those times where I'm gonna have to write something up or do something how to properly build this card because like if you're gonna do anything, it would make sense to do like McAfee versus Lashley just because of name value. Like I don't know why we're shoving Austin Theory and Omos into that. That doesn't make any sense.
Somebody threw out that. Somebody threw out the idea. It's like, what if all this build up for this Seth thing and all this Cody talk, and the reveal is this Shane?
That would be hilarious. I support that. I support that.
Like he deserves that. Seth deserves that.
Seth deserves so much worse than that. Speaking of people who deserve things and don't deserve things, Triple H deserved to be retired. For the 2003 title reign of doom alone, he deserved to retire. But he did not deserve to retire the way he did. He had some type of infection through pneumonia. I forget what it was, but it was some type of really aggressive pneumonia. And it caused him to have heart failure, which is horrifying. And they had to put, I think they said, a stunt into his heart.
He got a defibrillator.
A defibrillator, okay. And it's ended his career. Now, I've been longing for Triple H to retire since 2003. This isn't how I wanted him to retire, though. I've never been a fan of this dude. But as a creative force behind NXT, I always appreciated the fact that he knew how to book. So when we found out that, he had this deadly heart condition and it's going to force him to retire, and he was coughing up blood, and his heart was decreasing in the refractal by such a degree over the course of a day, like, holy God, that's terrifying. And coming off the heels of Scott Hall passing away, to have Triple H come out and basically reveal this, it's like, it's one of those things where, like, you're thankful he's okay, and you're mortified that this actually happened to somebody who seemed like the statuesque picture of health. It's scary. It's really fucking scary. Marcus, thoughts on Triple H having to retire from wrestling? Granted, he's 50, 51 or something like that, so it's not exactly like he's 25. But thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's I feel like it's been coming for a while now. I mean, ever since really hadn't felt like the same since he cut his hair. And honestly, and we talked about it, that end of an era match should have been it for him and Taker. Honestly. It's not like he has anything that's to prove. As a character through the '90s, like he made water pyro. That's a legit thing in the game. Like that's his water is pyro. And he made it cool. And even though I wasn't necessarily a fan, I always appreciated him who he was as a character because he was always, the guy. Like you got guys that are punchable, who have punchable faces, and then you got guys whose ass you just want to kick. And I think as much credit as you can give him for playing that villain role, you also have to lend a lot of credit to the vocal Bible on how to hate Triple H and JR. Because the verbal vitriol that he tossed that man's way, you would think somebody that had just told him in the headset as Triple H was doing whatever he was doing, that Triple H slept with his wife, and they got they just showed him the footage. That's the way he used to go off about it, and it used to make you like legitimately hate him. But he's done the thing. He's got one of the best wrestling returns of all time in that 2002 Madison Square Garden. Um, he terrorized Raw from 2003 to 5 with that World Championship reign, but we got Batista and Orton out of it.
So, 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
And one out of two. But yeah, man. I mean, look, he's got nothing less to prove. He's done everything. He's main evented, and I think even more so than his wrestling legacy, his NXT legacy has really put him in a different tier echelon. And when you kind of hear how things turned out, I don't know how anybody could be mad. Like I say, he's done everything. He's nothing left to prove, much like Taker, and he legitimately could not be here right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody who we've seen over the years, I don't know if I could think of a time where he's been out of shape or something like that. So for him to sit down and be like kind of, I mean, it puts it in a better perspective when you realize like there's a history of heart stuff with his family, but you kind of do health check-ins and stuff like that. You don't think it can happen to you, and it happened just that fast. Like I'm watching the interview, I'm like, it sounds like because he was like your heart's supposed to pump out a certain amount of blood or whatever at a certain, I guess, rate, like it's regular at 55, and he said I think he got a text to the doctor to come in to the emergency room, and like he was at 22 then.
Yeah. It's
So
it's called a heart refractory.
yeah, in fact, I'm like, this dude's heart was like he was in heart failure as he was being told to drop everything and come to the hospital. That is some scary stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like to know you could drop, like to be in that much good shape for as long as he has been, and for it to kind of just all go away like that with something like that being a silent killer, it just put a lot of stuff in perspective. So, you know, um, I'm not mad. I'm glad, he kind of gets to go out on his own terms in a way, because I think in his mind he kind of been done for a while. Even in his shape, the older you get, the more injuries rack up and the harder it is to recover from it. So, like I said, much like Taker, he ain't got his legacy is going to be far more defined by what he's done after wrestling as opposed to, him being a performer.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One of the things that, when it comes to Triple H, and I think it's kind of relevant, is his mind for the business almost seemed to outpace his skills in the ring. And to be fair, I've never thought he was a great worker, but his knowledge of what works is obvious. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, was the stuff in 03, because like the issue with 03 wasn't so much the fact that he kept winning, it was that he faced 3 dudes consecutively, 4 dudes consecutively, 3 of which made perfect sense to put the belt on. He faced Steiner in January. He faced Booker in March. He faced Nash throughout the spring and summer, and then he faced Goldberg in August.
Yeah.
And now he eventually did drop the belt to Goldberg in September, but through the first 9 months of the year, he didn't put it on Steiner, he didn't put on Book, and he didn't put on Goldberg. And all 3 of those dudes made sense to put the belt on. Now, granted, Nash was already over the hill, and he wouldn't have his revival until TNA a few years later, but...
Yeah, and and to be fair, he did drop it in that time, but blink and you missed it, because Benoit got it briefly, and then I went to Orton, and then that immediately went back to H, and then I think after that he dropped it to Goldberg, or he
No,
might have dropped it to
Goldberg was
Goldberg.
before.
Yeah, Goldberg was before.
Yeah.
And none of those reigns lasted any time worth of damn. So it kind of, like I said, it never felt like he was without that title. He's basically like 2003 Charlotte.
Can't believe we just made that reference. I can't believe it. But yet, here we are. We've made it. So, ironically enough, one of the people that he had his most impressive feuds with in 03, Scott Steiner. He was always persona non grata in the WWE. Well, apparently, the big bad booty daddy is no longer persona non grata, as Rick and Scott Steiner will be going into the WWE Hall of Fame this year. Not surprising, as Rick's son, Bron Breakker, a.k.a. Bronson Steiner, and Scott's nephew, Braun Steiner, is kind of the big deal on NXT right now. Granted, no one's watching NXT, so most people don't know who he is. But he's still a big deal, for the 12 people who watch him. He's fantastic. I really do like Braun Breaker, even if his name is just utterly stupid. Couldn't call him Breaker or Breaker Steiner? Like that would have been great. You couldn't call him Braun Steiner? Call this finisher the Breaker Steiner? Like, come on.
Careful, Chad. Once he ascends, he might just be Breaker.
Oh, God, oh, God, why? That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Breaker.
Then when he goes to AEW, he's going to be Bronson Breaker.
Oh, my God.
Or he's just going to be Braun. Because that's how it works these days. So, Marcus, I'm genuinely surprised that Rick and Scott Steiner are going in. I'm not surprised that they're Hall of Famers because they're one of the 5 greatest tag teams of all time. I'm surprised that they're actually bringing Scott Steiner back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mildly surprised, but not really, because they've gone to some very interesting lengths when they've needed to fill gaps.
Yeah.
We see that all the time with these Royal Rumbles they need to fill every year, particularly with the women. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's a no-brainer. You can't mention legendary and great tag teams in wrestling and not mention the Steiners. If you do, you're off. You're way off. But yeah, I mean, I think that's also one of the I hate that this word has been tainted. The narratives about WWE's Hall of Fame is led to a lot of quote unquote bridges being unburnt.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is another one of them. And it's funny because a lot of these guys that are the persona non gratas, ironically enough, I feel like several of them didn't have the nicest things to say about Triple H.
No. And to be fair, it's not exactly like Triple H's reputation wasn't well earned. Like he did his fair share of pissing people off. But what are you gonna do about that? Marcus, is Scott Steiner's Hall of Fame induction speech already must-see TV before it happens?
Right.
I mean, it kind of feels like a no-brainer, but I don't feel like he could top most of the things he did in TNA. And that's just it. Obviously, we're biased, but go back and watch that stuff. Just that clip I saw somebody posted on Twitter when they were sitting when the main event Mafia was in the ring. It was like, waited doggone all this time in this business and this fat mother. Calm down, Scott. He's fat. Just to watch a grown man go off like that, it's hilarious. So I don't know, man. You see a lot of people clean up their act for their speeches and whatnot. So we might get a more tame Steiner, but it's still gonna be must see TV regardless.
I hope it's not tame. I want Scott Steiner, your fat plus 33 and a third % chance plus get my bags plus whatever, plus Ric Flair's terrible at wrestling plus screw Hulk Hogan. I want all those iconic Scott Steiner promos smashed into one. I want him to dog walk Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. I want him to murderize the Triple H during his 03 run. I want him to pontificate in the most perfect prowess possible of his time in TNA and why it was a better organization. I want him to basically be the anti-Cena. I want everyone to go, oh, God, why did we give him a mic? Oh, no. If I don't get that from Scott Steiner, there is no reason to put him in the Hall of Fame. Because it's not a real Hall of Fame anyway. Let me have crazy Scott Steiner on the biggest night possible. And then bring him out for WrestleMania and have him do it again. Have him have Scott and Stone Cold Steve Austin do a mic off. Tell me you wouldn't love that. To hear Scott Steiner and Stone Cold Steve Austin going back and forth. What? Huh? What? Huh? I'd love it. Oh. Tell me that's not the greatest idea ever. I dare you.
Just to see him like standing in front of that podium and all, because I don't know how they're gonna do the setup. I remember how they did it with when Brett got jumped. I don't know if they're going to do that again, but that was wasn't that during COVID, the beginning of COVID or something like that? I don't know.
I think it was the year before COVID. I think it was 2019.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, just as everybody comes up in there with their kids and their girls, well, most of their spouses, and for him to be like, I see all the little freaks out there. Ah, looking at the
Yeah,
big,
that would be a little weird to
looking
hear.
at, they're looking at the big bad booty daddy like he has no reference for cancel culture. Like I'm not nobody's gonna be speaking out about the big bad booty daddy. Um, that you would think might have happened by now, but some people aren't flair and then directly live their gimmick. They just talk a lot of crap. Uh, but yeah, man, it's Scott Steiner. They could give him 2 speeches in the night. I don't care.
Give him all the speeches, Marcus.
Let him
Every
induct his.
single one.
If it was left up to us, Trisha Parker will be inducting him.
Ah, yes, Miss Parker.
Yeah.
I'm sure she would film some new content for her OnlyFans page while she's there.
Oh, it's only fair.
Fair to Flair. Who do you want to see induct the Steiners? 'Cause that's interesting.
I think you got more point of reference for with their history, but for me,
These are the questions that we bring to the table. For me, it would have made sense to do Road Warrior Animal, but he just passed away. It also would have made sense to do Paul Ellering, so he's an option. Booker T and Stevie Ray, although I don't think they've gone in yet. Have they gone in the Hall of Fame yet?
I want to say they are. I know it's. Yeah, I want to say they did go in. Yeah. They did. I think they did. Harlem Heat. Yeah. Would the Hearts be on the option?
No. The Harts and Steiners didn't really do much together. And I'm trying to think of like tag teams that. Yeah, you're right. They went in 2019. I'm trying to think of tag teams that had feuds with the Steiners. So like Booker T and Stevie Ray make sense. The Road Warriors make sense. Trying to think of like who they feuded with in the WB and if they're still alive. Have they even announced who's gonna induct them yet?
No.
Steiners. Steiners will be inducted as first announced by David Schumann, the Ringer. So, I guess not yet. Let's see. 2022 Hall of Fame, WWE Wiki. Maybe there's something that we missed. So, wait, Charmel's going in? Really? Marcus, are we scraping the bottom of the barrel?
Seems to be a recurring theme anytime we're talking about this company.
Like, I love Charmel, but she has done literally dick all in wrestling besides being married to Booker T. Like, her lone non-Booker T thing was when she was Prince Iakea's valet for 3 months in WCW. Oh, she was also a Nitro Girl at one time.
Yeah, I mean, in her credit, that King Booker thing, that none of that works without her.
True. But it didn't work at all.
It
was one of Booker T's worst things ever.
To be fair, entertaining as hell, but it being entertaining and working is 2 different things, specifically for us, because we like stuff that, most people like it was absolute trash, and for us it's gold. Like, for me, one of the best things Booker T was ever involved in was with him and Goldust. And that backstage segment when he was like, I give you mini dust. And he looked down and the damn thing was humping his leg. Gold. gold. Because Booker T always did this thing where he'd be in character, but something to happen, and he'd go like real black guy real quick.
That- yeah.
Like Prime Time stole his wallet. Prime Time stole his wallet. And he was like, "What are you doing here?" And then he said, "What the hell? Where my wallet is?" I guess it's always funny. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard to. The funny thing is, we talking about like scraping by a little barrel. She would be on the better side of things if we go through the long list of people. You like, what? Of names that you just think about that with. So, maybe they trying to open up a new section, like people who will, oftentimes think about it. It's funny because they're giving the Warrior Award to Chad, obviously, Shad,
Yeah, Shad.
and it's always the thing about, like, I'm like, man, Chad was a real, like a legitimate hero.
Hey, saved his son.
I don't know if I want him associated with freaking Warrior. And the ironic thing is they've warped the perception of that award, because when he initially came up with the idea, it was for people like cameramen and people backstage who do a lot of things that make the show work, like the costumers, the camera people, the people in the truck who've been there for years that don't really get the recognition they deserve to get the Warrior Award. And instead, they kind of turned it into something else, as vintage WWE does. But it's like, wish Chad could kind of be associated with something a little bit better, but I get it.
Like, on one hand, I understand and respect the idea of giving Shad Gaspard that award because, during his time in the company, he wasn't exactly the most well used. His gimmick, while highly entertaining, was also highly racist. And a lot of their best moments came at the expense of others at the worst possible time, like the whole Lita situation that has not aged well in hindsight 16 years ago. Dear God, I was 19.
Oh, what a time! What a time! What a time!
Oof, that one hit hard. I'm gonna have to ruminate on that one tonight. But giving him the award, he was a big. He legitimately saved his son's life at the cost of his own. He's genuinely a hero. But he was also like MVP and him were on what was it, Instagram or Twitter with their reaction to Kofi Kingston's title win.
Yeah.
Was that what it was? Was Kofi's title win?
Yeah. They filmed. Yeah, they on the win. He won, and they had an emotional moment together. It's funny because MVP just tweeted maybe a couple of days ago, like he said he got mad at Chad for posting that because he thought he wanted that to kind of be a moment just for them. But then he was like, when he saw how people reacted and all the messages that he got for it, like he went back and apologized to him because he said he was right. Like it was something that needed to be shared. So that's always nice to see.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was really impressed with his ability to kind of, accept that he was wrong about that. People don't often make those types of announcements, so it shows the depth of MVP's character. As for Shad, I agree with you. It should be a different award. It should be a different intent of the award. Maybe create the Shad Gaspard Award for wrestling heroes, but it's the WWE, and it's pretty much like you go to the orphanage, your little orphan Annie. You're just hoping to get gruel. Like, you're not gonna sit here and ask for a pizza or like a steak. You'll just take the gruel because you know that it's the orphanage, and they don't even give you gruel all the time, so you'll take it.
Oh, what's the line from Matilda? I got some sloppy joes for you extra. Oh no,
That's from Adam Sandler.
Yeah,
I know you like them extra sloppy.
Oh, sloppy. Oh man, she'd pair perfectly with old dude from Dread.
Oh God, Armando Santi.
You're like what? Hey man, y'all ain't got no more sides. We got some cold slaw.
Fucking hate coleslaw.
It's the worst.
It's the bane of my existence.
It's
Why would you ruin cabbage with that? Why?
The Brotherhood of Evil to potato salad.
Ugh. Like anything with mayonnaise and vegetables, like I just look at it and go, why? Especially when there's ranch dressing, right? Like, why would I go in on that when I can have ranch? It's like, why would I hook up with, Matilda, the lunch lady with 46 moles on her face, when someone who looks like Riley Reid without the body count, it's like, hey, you want to come out with me instead? Like, no, obviously I'm going to go with Riley, obviously, not Matilda, the lunchroom gnome. It's like, and why would I have mayonnaise with my cabbage when I could just have spinach and ranch? Like, Marcus, this is a hill. I'm not sure I'm gonna die on it, but I can at least see why people would. Mayonnaise and vegetables, yeesh. Not as bad as pineapple on pizza, but it's in that conversation. Like, when we talk about terrible people in history. Not everyone's a Hitler or Stalin, but some of them get brought up on their way to the Hitler and Stalin. I feel like that's what mayonnaise and vegetables are for me. It's on the way to pineapple on pizza.
Yeah, it's not good. Of course, my ears perked up when he was like, Riley Reid without the bodies. I'm like, oh, what a fantasy, because I'm still sitting there trying to figure out what the freak does that tattoo say on her back. As you would imagine, watching her, you see it a lot.
My dad's so disappointed.
My dad's so disappointed.
I mean, it makes sense.
It's blew out in Japanese. No, no, but yeah. I mean, I can't be mad at the Sharmell of it all. I dig her. Like I said, that I don't even know if we would have got Booker as long as we did without Mel, and it's not easy to do that role she did for as long as she did and do it as well as she did. Because in certain instances they might have tried to legitimately put her in the ring, and we've gotten that before, and we see them come back every year through the Women's Royal Rumble, and it's not good. It's still not good. So, for somebody that knew their role and played it to a T, you got to give it off to her.
Yeah, maybe I'm being a little hard on her for her career. Like, admittedly, she had 9 years, maybe 10. I forget when she became a Nitro Girl. That's a pretty decent run. And while I would argue that in the grand scheme of things, she's not a Hall of Famer by any stretch of the imagination, but by WWE standards, maybe she's long past due for an induction, right? Like, that company doesn't exactly have the best floor when we're talking about Hall of Famers. You got Coco Beware and Drew Carey in there. It's like, can you really argue that Sharmell's not a legend at that point? I don't know. I'd have a hard time doing it when you bring that up. So Booker's going to induct her. Mick Foley's inducting Vader. Vince is inducting The Undertaker. Dana Warrior's going to present the Warrior Award. I don't know who's accepting it on Chad's behalf. And right now, the Steiner brothers do not have any inductees.
Yeah, it would be cool to see. I would imagine they're going to invite his wife and son. It'd be cool to see either JTG or MVP do it. But great thing about watching somebody like that, I guess after the fact is you realize he got a lot of people that would probably like to induct him. But you can't necessarily say about a lot of people we've seen go through this Hall of Fame. That's really not a thing, but it's a thing. But we'll see. We'll see. It's gonna be interesting who, like you said, and does the Steiners. Like I said, if it was up to me, I'd have Steiner induct himself, just so we can get him to talk.
Have Bronson induct Rick, and then just have Scott do Scott.
You're not gonna know the difference.
No.
Talking. If the camera's not on, you're not gonna know the difference.
P.D. Williams. He's a producer for WWE.
Ask P.D. Punk.
There it is.
And he can come out with Rocket Khan because Kurt won't be there. Or will he? Damn. I never know.
Kurt loves his chocolate milk. What can we say? Good on Kurt.
Oh damn, we can't invite Kurt because Sharmell's gonna. Jesus, Kurt, you talking about stuff that didn't age well.
I want to ask him, or the writers of that segment, did they really mean to say that he wants to do hardcore bestiality sex with her? or hardcore bonded sex, because I feel like he may have flubbed the line. You know? Because it's Kurt. I don't know, man.
It was
By
just
the
not good.
by.
Like,
Yes,
yeah.
go on. No, sorry.
Not like the only thing I can remember about somebody getting their wife terrorized more than that is I remember when DDP did it to Taker.
Yeah.
Was that Sarah? Because
Yes.
that like that might have been Sarah. Yeah, 'cause, I remember that, man. It was running all over the place. That was nuts.
So the tattoo on Riley Reed's back is apparently Chinese. I thought it was Japanese. Shows you how much
Yeah.
I know about my kanji symbols. And it means, loosely translated, life brings you when lemons make lemonade, a.k.a. when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But that's a phonetical English phrase, and you're trying to translate it into Chinese with ancient traditional letterings in Chinese. And lemonade was not a thing when they invented the Chinese alphabet. So it's just all sorts of stupid. The things we find out thanks to Reddit. Speaking of finding out things, Marcus, apparently Buff Bagwell is in demand. And demand. So pretty much somebody kind of came after Buff because he tweeted out, Nyla Rose is huge. How is she not the women's champion? That match was a perfect build for her. Hashtag AEW Rampage. And then somebody replied with well, it's because she's a man. Because Nyla Rose is transgender, if you didn't know that. And Buff pretty much told her off. Or told him off, I mean. And then people are like, dude, here it is. I knew I'd find it if I kept looking. It's a screenshot, but I found it. Oh, and the photo marks, if you're not looking, is last night's slap from Will Smith to Chris Rock, but it's Buff Bagwell slapping Vince McMahon. I figured you would appreciate that. So he says Nyla Rose is huge. A guy responds with, maybe because Nyla Rose needs to be a woman in order to be a women's champion. It's kind of in the name. Buff replies with, please go sit down. Grown folks are talking. It continues on with, some people were surprised with my tweet last night about Nyla Rose, but I'm 100% behind the LGBTQ community. And somebody replied with, to be honest, and no offense, please, because you was one of my favorites, but I always thought you were gay. And Buff replied with, a lot of people did. I was very Metro, which I didn't know what that meant then.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then he goes on to say, your discovery of Twitter is quite entertaining. And Marcus Bagwell says, I'm enjoying it so far. Today I've learned what based means, and apparently I'm based. The guy goes, what does it mean? Bagwell goes, I'm not 100% sure. But it's apparently a compliment about someone who doesn't care about or care how people feel about their opinion. I hope Buff Bagwell is actually running his Twitter account and it wasn't turned over to someone who knows what buttons to push to get Twitter on their side to promote their new Rebuilding Buff YouTube channel. Buff replies, I'm actually running this account. It was ran by my handlers before. My actual interacting with my fans is part of my recovery, because Buff is in recovery for addiction issues. He also goes on to say, let's do a recap. I'm a base Chad. Yeah, you are. And though I don't personally enjoy Buzzy, I get why others do. Am I missing something? So I love this. I was always a Buff guy when he was with WCW, and I was always wondering why he didn't show up more often wrestling after WCW. Obviously, substance issues were probably a big issue. But I remember seeing him in 2006 when they were doing that whole Sting is picking a tag team partner for Sacrifice. There's going to be Jeff Jarrett and Monty Brown, if I remember correctly, versus Sting and a partner. And he ends up choosing Samoa Joe. But before he did that, he brought in Lex Luger, Rick Steiner, and Buff Bagwell. And Buff looked fit as hell, man. So I don't know why they didn't do more with Buff back then. He had a short stint with TNA to a degree. I think it was maybe a few months. But I always liked Buff. And I don't know why, he kind of fell the way he did outside of the addiction issues. So I'm hoping we get to see more Buff, man. He's only 52, and in today's wrestling landscape, that ain't old at all. I would love it. Let's see.
No, man, it's cool because you oftentimes don't get to see, we've had a whole past couple, almost 3 years, it feels like, or all these people who you thought were virtuous and all the other, I guess, positive adjectives you could use to describe, turn out to be some real creepy douchebags. Or to see somebody who may have had the perception of being one, maybe change their tune. And I feel like some of those scenarios end up coming to pass when, those instances hit close to home. You can't really run from it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was cool to see. And for him to come out with a former wrestler, because I can only imagine what Nyla Rose gets in her inbox
Yeah.
on a daily basis, So, and she could she could get on Twitter and be a real stick in the mud about a lot of stuff, and she just goes out there and does her job. So, kudos to him for that. But even if it wasn't, I hate to say this, but if it was like a false claim, just for that Twitter exchange alone, that almost was worth it. It was like, apparently it's a such and such. Like, what is that? I don't know.
Hey, that's the best part. What does it mean? I don't know. Like, having clarity, Buff Bagwell is my new favorite Buff Bagwell. And like I think the dude's always kind of been given like a bad reputation just because like the WWE's slanted documentaries. There it is. I can pronounce words correctly. Because they always painted him as a goof. And like the thing is, like, I know Jim Ross is beloved, but Jim Ross has done some shady shit to wrestlers before. And we kind of just ignore it because he's an old man, and apparently that gives you carte blanche to not be held responsible for your actions. But Jim Ross has been accused of being a very terrible person, especially with negotiations, saying that a lot of people who dealt with him felt that they were lied to, and it was one of the reasons why he was replaced from his job, because he had a bad reputation with those that were negotiating with the company. So Jeff Jarrett also spoke about Jim Ross to a great extent when he went to WCW. He talked about how he really felt that Jim was, I don't want to say had it out for him, but he didn't trust Ross. And there's truth to that, Like there's a reason that guy feels that way. So when I think about Buff Bagwell, I think about all that time that the WWE spent. Like, oh yeah, his mom called in sick for him or something like that. It's like, I think the issue wasn't that Buff Bagwell wasn't a good wrestler. I think it was Buff Bagwell was too good of a person. Like, think about it. Like, that company really thrives with bad dudes in charge, and Buff seems like a really chill, really laid back guy. And who knows? Maybe he was just somebody that the company, for whatever reason, just didn't respect because he wasn't some brood. That's my thought. It's pure speculation, but I feel like there's like a grain of truth to this, We'll have to see, though, in time. Hopefully Buff keeps his recovery going, Because that's the thing that I want most, is for him to be happy and sober.
Yeah, it's you need to see these guys like deteriorate, after the fact, after, years and years of taking bumps and whatnot, and it kind of goes down. Like, what was really sad towards the end of his time with WWE was kind of seeing how, like, bad in health Paul Bearer had got.
Mm-hmm.
I think specifically one of those years where he had to be helped out of the ring. But I think he tried to do some stuff after that, and it didn't necessarily work out, or it came back or something to that effect. But you hate to see it with these guys. Like, you don't, as good of a series as Dark Side of the Ring is, I don't want them to have new material. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we want that show to eventually be canceled because, like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do? Mildly OPEC Side of the Ring? Like, yeah, Chris Saban's going to be a 40-time world champion, but he blew his knee out. Chris, you upset about that? Not really. Oh, okay. Next week on OPEC Side of the Ring, Sting. He hurt his neck, then he came back to AEW and had a great run. Sting, you mad about Seth Rollins breaking your neck? Not really. Shit. Running out of material, folks. Someone call Tammy.
Oh, God damn it. That's a whole season's worth. Honestly.
Dark Side of Tammy. Oh, no. No. All right, we got one more story. Tony Khan apparently got into it with MJF this weekend. I'm going to read the report. The interview. Here we go. We noted last week, this is from WrestlingInc.com. We noted last week that MJF spoke with Ariel Helwani to discuss interest from the WWE, his AEW contract status, Cody Rhodes, yada, yada, yada. Now, Fightful Select reports that Khan took issue with the interview being set up without notifying AEW's PR team. The interview led to a conversation between Khan and MJF over the weekend, which reportedly left both men frustrated. It was noted that MJF's contract status has also caused the young AEW star to be frustrated as of late. AEW sources said that they don't think that they... let me reread that. AEW sources said that they did not think there would be an issue with the subject matter of the interview if it was set up with AEW's PR team first. MJF confirmed during the interview that his AEW contract expires on January 1st, 2024, and admitted that he's not afraid to stir the pot until then. So when you're as talented as much of a draw as I am, if I want to call bite off Tony Khan's fingers, he knows where his bread is buttered. All right, MJF. He goes on to say, and if that offends somebody in the locker room, which I know it does, oh well, cry about it. Get more over than me. Oh wait, that's right, you can't, because I'm literally the best talker in the business and one of the best wrestlers in the history of the business, bell to bell. Because I don't just spam moves like I'm in a video game. I make people feel something because I'm going out there to win. WWE's interested, obviously. MJF says he'll go where the money is. Marcus, is this a strong sign that maybe MJF isn't going to be long for the folks at AEW? Pissing off your boss really isn't a good idea.
I don't know, man. It's a bad combination. You know, you don't. Older folks would call it. They have a saying about smelling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're getting a little too, you got, you know, or you know, I've heard, you know, sometimes you got a little too much dip on your chip, if you will. The kid's impressive. He's not necessarily the bee's knees, not for us. You know, I think it's commendable, you know, that he's one of these guys that very much tries to adhere to that old school kind of stay in character thing. As I would imagine a lot of work goes into that, specifically when you're also trying to be a real person in real life. Because we see how long Undertaker held it up.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, you know, it's a lot of other things, other people and other avenues in the company. I mean, they got to the point that, you know, Cody, you know, didn't necessarily, you know, they didn't need him. Got to the point where they kind of almost outgrew him. So, you know, I think he might be getting a little ahead of his bridges. He's not Jericho. You know, he's not some other names that are more promising in that right. He definitely has a bright future ahead of him, and he is a very unique heel in the time where so many people end up being tweeners just because they'd rather be cool than be work one side of the fence or the other. But you know, also like you said, it's your boss, and if that little exchange we saw with Swole taught us anything, Khan ain't the most maturest.
He's in his 40s too.
You know, you know, can kind of be a little petty LaBelle at times, if you will. So, you know, you might want to, you know, tread a little lightly there, you know, because like I said, his name's coming in every day. It's a whole slew of people just waiting for those 90 days to end, to come in, and you can be replaced, man. I mean, it is from a on-screen perspective. Wardlow has supposedly surpassed him now, so you know, it's
So I've talked to you before about how I don't get Keith Lee. I don't get
Yeah.
Wardlow either.
Well, at least your opinion's diverse, literally.
Like it's not about like the race of a person. Like I get why Swerve is over. Swerve is like Scott Hall if he was a cruiserweight. That dude drips swagger.
Oh, that's a hell of a compliment.
Right? Like he just drips it. Like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I would sit down and be like, listen, some of your look is a little too like commonplace right now, so let's think of some ways to get you over. Like maybe because like he's got what are those, like dreads? I think he has dreads. I would have him straighten his hair and like dye like a swath of it like white or neon green, just like give him that little pop that stands out, because so many wrestlers have dreads or have long hair or have beards. And it's like
Yeah.
you find like a new way to stand out. Like always look for that new thing. Like Danhausen, he's got dumb 1920s face paint. Everyone's got face paint, but no one has Danhausen's face paint. And I think that's like the thing that needs like when Bryan Danielson, God, I can't believe I'm calling him that name. That's it's so great. But when he was like rocking the long beard and the long hair, like everyone had that look, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good then. It wasn't good now. But like when he trimmed it to just the beard and did the what is it called, the undercut with his hair, like that was cool. So like I would have Swerve just change something, like add some color to his hair or give himself a new hairstyle, or maybe like I don't want to say an exact Zack Ryder like outfit, but like give him something that's just weird. Like Jeff Jarrett. Remember when Jeff Jarrett had that awful fucking like weird negligee in the 90s? I would do something like that, like something that's just obscure and out there. I think that would work. But as far as like guys like Wardlow and Keith Lee go, it's like, all right, yeah, they're big dudes who do things. That's Brian Cage. That's Bobby Lashley. Like, there's no real onus for them. When you walk into the gas station to get something to drink, you're looking for a pop, or for you Southerners, soda. Fucking weirdos. It's pop. It's fucking pop. But like, you're looking for a soft drink of some kind. You're gonna look at your Cokes, your Pepsis, maybe your Sprites. Granted, Sprites and Cokes are the same company, but whatever. But you're not gonna look down at like your off-brand fourth-tier generic grape soda, because why would you when it just says grape on it? I don't know. That doesn't seem appealing. I think it might burn off rust from the battery. Like you don't know what it is. Maybe you're looking at some Ahas or some energy drinks. You're not going to be looking at third or fourth tier energy drinks. You're going to be looking at what's that? Red Bull or with the other stuff. And it's the same thing with pro wrestlers. Like when you're looking at guys, you have to remember that they're commodities. You're buying a personality. And that personality has to be bigger than everyone else. Otherwise, it's not going to work. That's why some guys get over and some guys don't. Like MJF. He's over because he's a personality.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Again, and he's also a guy, like I was mentioning earlier with Triple H, he's a guy that has a punchable face and whose ass you just thoroughly want to kick.
Yes.
Like it's not easy to get both of those. Some guys just get the punchable face aspect or the other one, but to get it both, I think is a very unique combination, which is why he stands out from other people, and he can go on the mic. But let me ask you this, because you mentioned these big guys in AEW. Okay, we go line it up. You got Wardlow on the left, Keith Lee on the right. Is Powerhouse Hobbs a happy medium for you?
To an extent. Powerhouse Hobbs is a guy, and it's kind of like looking at things in a sports roster context. Who's your favorite sports team right now, Marcus? Do you have one?
No, I mean, if I'm going football, maybe the Chiefs because of Mahomes.
Okay, that'll work. So you have Patrick Mahomes. He's making $43 million a year because quarterbacks are vastly overrated. But let's say that Patrick Mahomes isn't your quarterback. Let's say Baker Mayfield is. Are you giving Baker Mayfield $43 million if you're the Chiefs? I wouldn't.
No.
And it's hard to say no. With wrestling, it's not so much about the bottom line in terms of money, but it's about time needed for matches, for interviews, for merchandise. So when you say like, is Hobbs the happy medium to Wardlow and Keith Lee? I would say yes, because I don't need to put him out 6 segments in a show. I don't need to justify his contract like I would with a Wardlow or with a Keith Lee. I don't need to worry about the ego issues that may come with a Keith Lee, because that was apparently a situation in WWE. There are things that with a Powerhouse Hobbs that I don't have to worry about with a Wardlow or a Keith Lee. So I feel like I don't need him to be the top star. I don't need him to be cutting the best promos. I don't need him to be selling, hundreds of $1,000s of merch every year. With Keith Lee, you do. With Wardlow, you do. They're all the same talent as far as I'm concerned. Like, I don't think any one of those guys is better than the other. Maybe they're both better than Wardlow. Wardlow's kind of boring, but I think that's more to do with just him being shoehorned into a role. But when you have those three guys, you have to, justify their time. You have to justify their expenses. You have to justify how much merch you're giving them. And when you don't have that much of a separation between the three of them, it's almost like, why bother? With Powerhouse, you don't need to worry about that. And I feel like that's the reason I would go with Powerhouse, because I don't know if Keith Lee can be a headliner, but you're paying him like he is one. And that's going to be part of the conversation when you go forward with AEW. How many of these guys are going to get second contracts when they are not who they need to be? Like, CM Punk's going to get a second contract. He's huge. Massive. So is Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole. Although I don't know why Cole is. Another guy I don't get. But with guys like Keith Lee, he has a reputation of being popular on the internet. But is he a marketable draw? And that's going to be one of those things going forward, especially with Wardlow, that you're going to need to see if they can actually be. If they can't be those big draws, then what's the point of keeping them around, especially at their figures and the time given to them on a show? Like, Wardlow's on 2 or 3 segments a show, and you only have 2 hours. So, like, is that really prudent?
Yeah, and to be fair, it's one of those things too. It's like he's catching on now because he's playing off of MJF. Once that separates, is he going to consistently be somebody you want to see outside of watching him house people around? It's a lot of houses in that company.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, one of the things that's become probably the best things that's been of late is House of Black.
Mm-hmm.
And they, that's a to me, that's a kill squad in itself. So you're looking at stuff like that, and like you said, you got Brian Cage, who we may see him by 2023. Again, you got Hobbs, and you got other guy. Hell, you got freaking Everybody Dies and others. It's not hard to get lost in the shuffle. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens when he's no longer in the orbit of MJF. Is he gonna be able to hold that attention on his own? Because like you said, he's getting the Batista comparisons now because of the storyline, but Batista had his own swag that he was interested to watch after the Evolution stuff. So
yeah, and like the thing is, like, and Batista's the perfect analogy for this, because look at that era of WWE. John Cena, Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar, Chris Masters, maybe Carlito to an extent. You had Nathan Jones, Mark Jindrak, who was Nathan Jones the New Zealander? I think so. Who was the Luther Reigns? You had all these dudes who were just carbon copies of one another, but of them all, 2 made themselves into bona fide stars: Cena and Batista. And it was because they were the most personable. Cena had that rapper gimmick, and Batista was just Joe Cool. Like, that dude walked in with his hair and the suit and that smirk, and you just felt it. But no one else had that. Even Lashley, as great as he is in the ring, and he's an all-timer in my opinion, he needed to be legitimized by competition, not just by booking.
exactly.
If Lashley never went to TNA, if Lashley never fought in Bellator, he never becomes Bobby Lashley in WWE. I guarantee that. I know we can't guarantee things that didn't happen, but I guarantee you if those 2 things didn't happen, he never would have wound up back in the company. Or at least not as a world champion. So it's very indicative to kind of look at what the issues with AEW is right now. And it's not just Wardlow and Keith Lee as guys I don't quote-unquote get. Like, I don't get the Dark Order. Like, They exist only because I think to serve as like an in memoriam of sorts to Keith Lee, not Keith Lee, excuse me, to Brody Lee. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but if you're just doing them as like a Friday night body filler, Let's kind of just, figure out, who we're putting over with these guys. All right, that's fine. Every company has them. But they're still trying to promote them as like a top group.
Yeah, it's they don't have anything to propel them off the Brody Lee thing. Obviously, they're still together in the spirit of Brody Lee and everything, but one week there's 50 of them. Then all of a sudden, 12 of them get dog walked, or, 4 of them get dog walked, and then the rest of them will come out the next week to avenge it, and then some of them will get wiped, and then now you got 5 this week confronting House of Black, and it's like, we know how this go. Like, I only know a couple of y'all, like, what, Evil Uno. I know the son is -1, and the bald one who's small and kind of muscular, I forgot his name.
Stu Grayson, I think.
Um,
Because he's the only one
yeah,
that has a name, I think.
yeah, and other than that, but I'm like, y'all don't really exist outside of, like, recently, y'all were basically like Hangman Page's muscle, and he kind of just played y'all to the left like a side chick, because now he's world champion and kind of forgot about y'all. So y'all don't really have a functioning narrative outside of this is still Brody Lee's crew, but y'all don't have anything going on besides that. And if y'all just doing random run-ins against groups who's clearly go clear y'all out, like there's no scenario where y'all finna beat Brody King. I said that right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, Brody King. Uh, but Buddy Matthews. If he just had a better name, he kills it in the ring. But and Aleister Black, y'all not clearing them.
The only thing
So,
is killing is my interest in him.
uh,
Here's the thing. I'm glad you brought up the House of Black because one of the issues that I have with them is they're going in the same route as all these other AEW stables. It's let's find guys who look just like me. And it's not a great idea. Like the one thing that I think people kind of look past when we talk about like the New Day. Like everyone goes, well, yeah, they're a trio of black guys and that's their thing. But if you only ever see them as that, you miss them completely. Kofi is a laid back kind of surfer dude. Like he's very nonchalant, he's very Orange Cassidy without the hyper Orange Cassidiness. Then you have Xavier Woods. He's rambunctious. He's the little brother. He's chaos incarnate. He's fun. He's the jokester. And then you got Big E, who's the muscle, but he's also very much the protector. And they all have very unique identities. And that's
yeah,
what made the New Day. They've been around for what, 7 years?
yeah, man.
2014, right?
Yeah, they deserve several specials considering they just really got thrown together with something that when you look back into the origins of how that first started,
Yeah, it's
that was
terrible.
yeah, it was not working at all. Like that's probably one of the most organic things that company has just allowed to be that they didn't ruin because we saw how they just absolutely threw up on the Hurt Business.
Mm-hmm.
That was just bad. But the New Day is really something special. And I think when you said that, I'm like, not only do they have diverse personalities, look at the body types. Like it
Yeah.
looked like Kofi went into the hyperbolic time chamber,
Came out as
like
Xavier Woods.
came
Went
out
back
like
in. Came out as Big E.
Big E, or but basically, basically like Xavier Woods is like that first form of Ascended Saiyan, and then Big E is that Trunks form, and he thought he was finna dog Cell with, and then Cell was like, you do know you cannot catch me, right? Stop using that useless form and come down.
Biggie pulls the "this isn't even my final form," and then Bobby Lashley pops up. But like, so think about the unique personalities of the New Day. Now think of the Dark Order. Think about the House of Black. They're just bodies, and they're failing at promoting more than just the front guy. Page for the Dark Order, and Aleister Black or whatever his name is for the House of Black.
Yeah.
Now think about this. Do you remember the original lineup of the Ministry of Darkness? It was The Undertaker, Mideon, Viscera, the Acolytes, and the Brood. Don't think I'm missing anyone. But like you had the Vampire Brood. You had the Devout Satanist in Mideon. You had whatever the hell Viscera was supposed to be. And then you had the Dark Protectors of the Undertaker and the Acolytes. In their generic names and their generic looks, they all had a uniqueness in their group. which is, again, a concept that AEW is failing with because all the Dark Order members look the same. All the House of Black members kind of look the same. If you changed it up and added Pentagon, Danhausen, maybe one or two members of the I can't remember their damn names now. The Evil Unos. What's their group called again?
Oh, freaking
The Dark Order.
Dark Order.
If you put like 3 members of the Dark Order, paired them with Aleister Black and Brody King, and then maybe threw in Abaddon. Now that's a stable that does not need to have dedicated time for every individual because they all look unique. You're not going to be going, well, which one is that? Which member is that? You're going to look at Pentagon and go, I know who that is. You're going to look at Abaddon and know who she is. You're going to look at Aleister and know who he is. You're going to look at Danhausen and know who he is. It's going to be instantaneous. And that's the thing that AEW is failing at because when you look at someone like, Wardlow or Powerhouse or any members of the Dark Order, you lose the idea of, well, who are these people individually? And that becomes part of the part of the issue. Like the Team Taz has failed for a bulk of their run because they only ever gave focus to Taz and Ricky Starks. And I know you like Ricky Starks, and I think he's a great hand. But I think building around Ricky Starks is like building around Marvin Bagley if you're the Charlotte Hornets back in 2005. It may seem like a good idea at the time. It's dumb.
I get it because of his personality, but I'm like, Hobbs can be so much more now than just his muscle. And now you bring in Keith Lee, and this would be like the perfect time to do something. That's not been booked right, and I still don't understand the whole FTW thing, but that's just me. It's just not working. When you brought up Abaddon, I immediately thought of Decay, and they're still going.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another faction that kind of seemingly kind of evolved early on. It's like, okay, what is going on with this? And then that's lasted for like how many years now with like an evolved version of it? Yeah. So it's like, so that's, like you said, you got to kind of stand out. Like House of Black got 3 hitters in it. But like you said, they kind of all look alike. Like Brody King just looks like a big, if Aleister Black was bigger.
Yeah, he looks like if Aleister Black, stopped dieting and exercising. He looks like future Aleister Black. He looks like Aleister. He looks like Aleister Black Dad.
Yeah, but Buddy Matthews look at the guy, their friend who refused to get tats, but consistently went to the gym and wants to join, and is great throwing knees.
Right. So to pull it all back around, I think that's one of the reasons why MJF stands out is because he is unique and he is given time to work on his personality and his gimmick. But also on the grander scale of things, AEW is like a baseball team. And we'll compare with when TNA had their mass exodus in 2013, 2014. That was like a football team. In baseball, if you lose 5 or 6 guys, you have 3 levels of professional talent behind you. You have the major leagues, the AAA, AA, single A. So if you lose 3 or 4 guys from your major league team, you just look at your AAA team and go, we can call these 4 or 5 guys up, replace them, and just keep going. And great Major League Baseball teams do just that, like the Tampa Bay Rays, the Cleveland Guardians. But you look at what happened with TNA, they didn't have a minor league system. So that's more like the NFL. They lose 5 or 6 guys that are their top guys, and all of a sudden, they're done. They went from being, the second seed in the AFC to looking at the number 1 draft pick in a year because they lost 6 guys. AEW can handle losing MJF. They can handle losing Cody. They can handle losing Chris Jericho because there's always a guy seemingly in the wings ready to step up. Now, the problem's going to come, if it does come, when some of these guys decide that they're done at the same time. Like if Orange Cassidy, Danhausen, Adam Cole, Ricky Starks, and Swerve all at the same time decide to go start their own promotion in 2 years. That'll be terrible because CM Punk will be 45, 46. Bryan Danielson will be 44, 45. Jericho will probably have been retired by then, either through injury, health, or COVID because, anti-vaxxer. There's going to be so many opportunities for guys in 2 years, but are those guys going to still be around to take those spots on? Or are they going to look to go elsewhere? If that happens, that's when AEW is going to be in trouble. But if they only lose 1 guy every other year, they're going to be fine. It doesn't matter how big their names are. They could lose CM Punk to TNA or Impact. They could lose Bryan Danielson to New Japan. They can lose MJF to the UFC. Who cares? As long as it's not happening in the same month, they can weather that. So I don't think losing MJF is going to be a nail in the coffin, as long as they also put the time, energy, and money into promoting guys like Powerhouse Hobbs, your Stu Graysons, although I don't know why you would promote Stu Grayson, your Ricky Starks and your younger stars, because building them up needs to be priority. Like Orange Cassidy, Jungle Boy, like those guys need to be future main eventers, so they need to be given the time to be main event. And I feel like they're on their way. So I don't think there's any reason to worry about if MJF leaves, what's that going to do to the roster. I don't think it's that serious. So that's my thought. Marcus, anything else you want to touch on before we 22 skidoo?
No, I think that about covered it.
So we're back next Monday to recap WrestleMania. It'll certainly be a show. That's all I can say about that. It'll be a show. We'll talk more. Oh, I was thinking about doing this. I just saw a video on YouTube. A guy looked at the NBA 1,000 days ago. What did the NBA look like 1,000 days ago? It's like 3.5, nearly 4 years. I want to do that with wrestling. What did wrestling look like pre-pandemic, and what does it look like now? I think that'll be a fun thing to do. I think we'll do that for next week. Although you'll have to remind me because I'm probably going to forget at some point.
Post pandemic, like I said, before when we had Cornette consistently, when we lost Cornette.
I wonder, did Cornette's departure from wrestling cause the world to go asunder? Do we need him in wrestling to keep the balance? It's like, keeping the enemy because you can handle him, instead of like going with the enemy you don't know because you don't know how that's going to turn out. We know Cornette sucks, but is he needed? Is he a necessary suck?
I'm like, did we lose something when we couldn't audibly hear "thank you, fuck you, bye"?
Thank you, fuck you, bye. So, realnerdcorp.com, RealNerdCorp.com. We're on Twitter, NERDCorp. We're on Instagram at realnerdcorp. No, we're not. I deleted the Instagram account because it was bothering me. We're just on Twitter now. Twitter on the website and on YouTube. But you already know that because you're listening to us on YouTube. Marcus can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That is the kid.
You can also find him on his other podcast, previously mentioned before, on the True Penny Show, TruePennyShow, on Twitter. They're talking the Cocket Cup. God damn it. The Cucket Cup. God damn it, Will Smith. They're talking the Crockett Cup this week, so go check them out. If you like tag team wrestling, you're going to want to listen to that show. It's a 2-night event, so I'd recommend listening to the show because it's going to be a lot quicker than watching 20-odd matches over 2 nights. You can find me on Twitter at ChadNerdCorp, ChadNerdCorp, and on my Instagram at ChadSphoto, ChadSphotohut. That's still around. We'll be back next Monday, for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast on twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground, and of course, youtube.com/The Wrestling Underground or Wrestling Underground or one of those two. I'll figure it out eventually. Be sure to check the website, realnerdcorp.com. That's where you can find all of our stuff. We update every week. And that's it. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.